All right.
Let's get into the news.
It's time for the news. I got to bring you back over here, though. We are here. We are in the news. And first things first, there is a subject that I'm going to be covering very, very regularly, all the way up through the impending CBA negotiations and beyond 2026, that I call fact-checking Rob Manfred. And I need to come up with a little jingle. I didn't have time to do it with the sickness and everything. But I think it's going to go something like this. He said some stuff, but is it true? Probably not. It's Rob Manfred. So maybe we'll do that. Throw some music. Anyone at home can you do that? What other show does the host come up with jingles in real time? Huh? Name one. That's what I thought. All right. So first story. We have some more comments from our friend Rob Manfred when it comes to the impending CBA negotiations that I just mentioned. Okay. The day before the All-Star game on Tuesday, him and Tony Clark fielded questions, or they spoke in front of the Baseball Writers of America. Baseball Writers Association of America, the same group of people that vote on the Hall of Fame and our biggest governing body of all the writers around the game, and touched on a variety of topics. Evan Drellick from The Athletic has been reporting extensively on comments that Rob has made recently. And the reason that these things are happening right now is because this is a foundational, argumentative, they're trying to set the framework for how these arguments are going to happen and in order to move public sentiment one way or the other, because that is usually the strongest force in making these arguments, and they can sway players, or they can sway the ownership group accordingly, right? Where the fans are going is usually where one of the two sides has to try to bring them back or not. So that's how every negotiation happens. But that's why we're seeing comments being made right now, because they're just going to come up. They're buzzwords. They're little earworms. People like, it's dramatic, whatever, and it can get people talking. So they're going to just try to get people talking. All right. So here's what the comments were. I'm going to break them down. And what we're going to do every single time this happens is just talk about what was said. And then I will give you context on how things work and whether or not anything was actually said or not, what to expect moving forward, just so you can stay educated with maybe strategies from both sides, and then where maybe we'll know what might happen moving forward based on that knowledge. So, and it also allows me to not get so riled up and be more objective, because I was a player, okay? I was active in the union, and my father was a president of a union for like 30 years. So like, I have a very distinct direction I come from this, because I believe that the ability for workers to negotiate and have some sort of leverage or some recourse to create an environment that takes care of them more is important. Now, what that looks like can change very wildly, left, right, but just having the mechanism that exists is important, because otherwise, then it's just one group of people has a bunch of power, and then there's nothing anyone can do about it. And that doesn't work out very well, usually, for the other side. So here's what the comments were, and we're going to start with Rob, because Rob was the first to field questions. So he was asked whether or not the salary cap was something that he wants, okay? So salary cap is usually a big no-no, right? It's a non-tender, it's a non-starter conversation when you say that phrase. So you're going to notice that Rob wants to stay away from that phrase a lot, and what he says lines up with that a lot. It says, when I talk to the players, I don't try to convince him that a salary cap system would be a good thing, okay? Technically true. There's a lot of technically going to happen today, so prepare for that. Literally, what I say to them is, I identify a problem in the media business and explain to them that owners need to change to address that problem. So, first claim, there is a media, they don't know how to make money off of media the same way that they have for a long time because of the death of because of cable cord cutting and because of the death of the cable television industry. Like, I don't know, anyone who watches movies or TV shows or anything knows all about this, right? And of course, professional sports are also having the same problem. They don't know how, like, Fox just isn't going to shell out $500 million because they don't know if the viewers are going to be there, because the viewership keeps going down no matter what they do because of the nature of the distribution. So that is a problem, right? That's a problem that they are actively working on constantly, and it's the biggest thing they struggle with. Players don't really care about that a lot, but identifying that a problem is important. So, okay. The second problem we need to work is that we need to work together. So, okay, takes two to tango. We'll talk about that in a moment. And that there are fans and a lot of our markets who feel we have a competitive balance problem, okay? So, very key words here. The key words here are, there are fans. So, one, he's like, fans know about this, and we are for the fans. Very nice to hear if you're a fan. I will push back against it a little bit, and for him to think of fans in any other way of, we'll give you more money for this thing, he doesn't think about them as this is what they want. He thinks about this is what they'll pay for. And those things a lot of times are different. So let's just be very clear here. Those are not the same, okay? And he's gonna try to make them be the same a lot, and they're not. They are different things. There's different situations where one of them applies and the other one doesn't, okay? And then there is a competitive balance problem. So for me, I want to know specifically what the competitive balance problem is, and other than saying there is a competitive balance problem, Rob doesn't really spend a lot of time ever giving any detail what that means. What I'm assuming he means in this situation is the idea that the Dodgers are a super team, even though they just lost 7 straight, and they're barely in first place, and they've won 1 World Series since they become a super team. But I understand that, but at the end of the day, no, there's no sport in the world that has more parity than well, actually, maybe soccer has more parity, but no, we've had no back-to-back World Series champions. We have people who are in the playoffs all the time. They are the better teams, that's true, but the champions are different all the time, and that you can't say that about other sports quite as much. All right. So, last quote he said, "I have never used the word salary within one of cap." Basically, he said, "I've never said salary cap together. What I do say to them is, in addressing this competitive issue that's real, again, you can say things are real all the time, but you have to be like, because, boom, 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 still yet to see it, you should think about whether this system is a perfect system from a player's perspective." Perfect system's never gonna exist, so I don't really like that word either. My only goal here is to not convince them of one system or another, but to convince them that everybody is going to the table with an open mind. Just keep an open mind, guys. Just keep an open mind, okay? Just keep an open mind. So what we're trying to do is remove this, like, the word salary cap is a bad word. He wants to soften that so that he can start using it more. That makes sense. He's a lawyer. That's what they do. Changing what language means in the context of what they're talking about is very important. And then we have Tony Clark gets up here. He's a lot shorter. He says, "This is institutionalized collusion. That's what a salary cap is." Sure. It is, but like there's more I don't think people fully understand what a salary cap is, and I think we could do a better job of explaining that. There are no illusions of grandeur here in regards to what is worth hearing and what is the interest from the other side seems to be. As a result, players are being told as much. Okay, so what he's trying to say is, don't listen to anything they say. I think that is a good stance to take, but again, it's about nuts and bolts. I think people are like, yeah, we know. Why? Why? Like, specifically, what is a lie? So, like, that's what I'm trying to attempt to do here. I don't want to stay on this forever, but I do want to get through this point. So, I just mentioned salary cap, and the conversations around it kind of are driving me crazy because salary cap is a very specific thing. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a clear definition of what it is and how it is determined, and that in itself will show you what the problem is. Okay? So, salary cap or salary cap is a dollar amount set as the maximum a team can spend on their payroll. Okay, so it's a number that all the teams have to think of when they do it. Okay, we have the NBA and the NFL are given as examples constantly by Rob as the other North American major sports. If that is the case, okay? If we are going to model after them, we have to look at what they are. So in the NBA, they have what's called a soft cap, where when you go over it, certain amounts of time, you get escalating penalties. Does that sound familiar? That's the luxury tax, guys. We have a soft cap. They literally added a fourth tier for Steve Cohen, the Cohen tax. We have a soft cap. So if in effect, that is a salary cap because that is what the NBA has. So there already kind of is a soft cap in place. So we can't act like that this doesn't exist because it does. The difference is in the NBA, it is determined by something called BRI, or basketball-related income. Very, very important to pay attention to those words. Basketball-related income. Okay, so this, so then they take the BRI and then they take the percentage of that, and then that is what the players get paid. They also use an escrow system, so they put it into escrow, meaning that money isn't touched until the season's over, and just to make sure they don't accidentally overpay players. So this escrow system, like they don't even pay, like they want to, it's to protect the owners from ever having to have any accounting mistakes, so they pay only exactly the amount they need to pay, and there's no adjustments later. That is what escrow is, okay? The NFL uses something similar, but they have a hard cap, and their split is at 48 to 48.5%, which is terrible, okay? So I just want you to know, the NFL in general has the least player-friendly agreement. They always have, okay? So he would love those two things. He would love something like that for the league because they could set a number. But the difference is it's about related income to the sport. So what happens is every league starts to remove different income streams from that BRI or whatever it is for the NFL, from that pile of money that goes into revenue sharing. It's just not reported as revenue, part of revenue sharing. And they figure out ways to do it all the time. This is constantly happening. It's happened over and over and over again. It was the major reason when this was proposed in 1994, when the World Series was missed because of the strike, they wouldn't establish what was revenue up front. They wouldn't do it. They wanted the ability to manipulate it later. That doesn't sound like good faith to me. Does it sound like good faith to you? No, probably it shouldn't. Anyway, so Rob wants this. Players rejected it back in 94, okay? Every league has conveniently left out two things when it comes to the salary cap, okay? Clear definitions of what revenue is, like strict definitions, and then if there's a disagreement, there needs to be some sort of thing that kicks in where you get to negotiate it again by itself, right? Or you get to argue about it. Those two things need to exist. They are always, always, always denied by the league because that's too much power for the, that's not, they want as much unilateral power. They just want to make a decision and not have to worry about what the players think as much as possible because they're business owners. And then two, there's never any financial transparency, meaning they don't let anyone, like they just go, it's this number. And you're like, oh, can we see the books to see if that number's true? Like, no, it's literally a trust me, bro system. They're just like, trust us. We care about you. Trust us. This is the number. What else is it? I just gave you the number. What do you mean? Oh, you want to look at the books? Nah, you don't need that. Just believe me. What? That literally sets it up to it takes one person being like, hey, we could pull this out, and then no one can verify anything. What's the point? It's just really easily manipulated. And when money is what everyone cares about, that's what happens. So that is what a salary cap is, and that is why players don't want it, right? There is probably adjustments to be made. Deferments probably do need to be looked at. I think that a lot of people agree with that. Deferments are kind of being taken advantage of now. That's where we should say, hopefully the arguments go there, but what we're going to see is Rob using deferments to make the case that salary cap's a good thing. And they're not the same thing because deferments don't even go on your salary cap anyways. So like, he's going to say fans talking about deferments means they want a salary cap. And that just doesn't make any sense and it isn't true. So you're going to hear that connection made a lot. Pay attention to it. I have a proposal though, okay? This is how a salary cap will work. And this last part I'm going to say about this. It needs to, one, come with a high salary floor. We just need a minimum because the whole point is competitive balance. So Bob Nutting needs to be able to not run his place like a corner grocery store and run it like a professional sports team. And then two, the definition of what revenue needs to be clearly defined. And if there is a dispute, there needs to be a third-party system for bringing that into it. So you have an arbitrator, which honestly, most of the time, that arbiter will probably just side with the league, but you gotta have recourse so the players can say, hey, we think this should be included in revenue, and then they can go from there. So they need both those things. Three, a third party needs to audit the league's financials every year to verify that the revenue numbers being reported are true, right? The players need to know what the numbers are. Even if it's limited and some other third party does it, the players aren't like rooting around in the financials. Someone needs to, and it needs to be verifiable. It needs to be unbiased and third party. Now, I don't know if that's possible in this world anymore either, but it would be a step in the right direction. And the last thing is, the last part of that to get a salary cap is, I would say, Rob Manfred is salary is capped at $2 million per year, including bonuses, because Rob Manfred made $18.5 million last year, which is more than like 90% of the league, at least. That's a ballpark number. But he made almost $20 million a year. So if you want to save some money, guys, I found somewhere. Just saying. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments.